Welcome to MLS Round Table, presented by Target. I am Andrew Wiebe, and this is part 3 of our 2017 Major League Soccer Season in Review conversation. In part 1, we hit the top stories in MLS this season. In part 2, we heaped praise on the biggest players, the stars that made this year special. And in part 3, we will look ahead to 2018 as LAFC enters the league and we take it to another level. Joining me, a bunch of award winners: Julian Gressel of Atlanta United, Ike Opara of Sporting Kansas City, the Landon Donovan MVP, Diego Valeri, the All-State Goalkeeper of the Year, TIm Melia, and Dax McCarty, #1 in our hearts. Thank you.
The token ginger.
Yes, thank you for joining us, Dax. Guys, let's get right into it. Let's look ahead to 2018. And I'm going to stick with some of the teams that did well this year. I'm going to start with Atlanta because they had such a great season. They didn't quite reach their potential. You guys wanted to get past the knockout round, Julian, but do you see bigger things from this club already in the transfer window? The rumors are flying.
Yeah, I mean, you know, the front office is already working hard, I think. But if we can keep, obviously, the core of the group together, I think we'll be in good shape. You know, another year under Tata, and we'll kind of develop his system a little more and add maybe here and there a few wrinkles, just to take that next step. And I think for that it obviously takes a little time, but I hope we can be ready for the next year and obviously make the playoffs again and then hopefully go a little further.
Dax, other teams out there that you look at right now and say, contender. Doesn't matter what happens this offseason, they're going to be right there.
Yeah, I do, and this might surprise some people, but I'm going to say the New York Red Bulls. They're a team that's very well coached, and every season they seem to introduce new young players, guys from their USL team, signings that are a little bit more unheralded, not spending big transfer fees like Atlanta United. But the New York Red Bulls, I mean, I look at the way that they ended their season, and I thought they were very good at the end of the year. Obviously, gave us a good butt kicking up there in Chicago in the knockout round. But I look at their team; they're very young, they're very dynamic, they're very hungry. I think they made the playoffs like 8 or 9 years in a row, and obviously, if they add a few more pieces to that team, I see them continuing to get better and better.
Can I throw a gratuitous Tyler Adams plug out there, guys? I mean,
absolutely.
What
fantastic.
a player this is.
Yeah, he's unbelievable, and I had the pleasure of being able to see him when he was, I don't know, he was like 15 or 16 or something like that, and he was a madman. He came in, no fear. I think that's the best part about him is he doesn't fear any opponent. He doesn't fear any stage, any occasion, and obviously his technical ability, the way he covers ground, he's got a very bright future ahead of him. I'm curious to see him take the next step next year.
In part 1, we talked about coaches losing their jobs in the middle of the season, Diego. I did not mention Caleb Porter. He wasn't fired, but he left the top team in the Western Conference. That surprised me. Did it surprise you? What does it mean for 2018?
It surprised everybody, but I think it was a decision that Caleb, thinks really well, and he won't do that if he is not secure of that. So I think if he wanted to do that, it was the right moment. Top of the table, and leaving a lot of bases to work on it and to improve, and that's a positive. And obviously it was a great time. 5 years, 5 seasons where we achieved a lot of good moments and trophy. So, but now we have a lot of positive, and we have to keep working, with that base.
Let's talk about some new coaches that have taken over teams. I'm going to go all the way back to March. Mike Pecky, Dax, took the reins. You remember a time in New York with him. Why did you fire Mike Pecky? We'll always remember that one. But he comes in RSL with a bunch of young players and starts to turn things around. What do you expect from RSL in 2018?
Yeah, I expect RSL to be a playoff team. I think Mike, he learned in his early days at the Red Bulls, he was coaching, our reserve team, and he was working with younger players. He was trying to develop younger players, and that's what he's done with Real Salt Lake. And you saw that at the end of the season, I was a big fan of the way that team played, and I thought that they were going to sneak into the playoffs, to be honest. And I thought they were a little bit unfortunate not to get in. I think Mike's going to have a full offseason to prepare, maybe bring in some of his own guys. And I think in preseason, they're going to work on the things that Mike likes to do, Mike likes to work on, and I think they're going to be a very tough team in the West to deal with next year.
That happened in season. The ones in the off season so far, you're looking at Brad Friedel in New England, Anthony Hudson from New Zealand to Colorado Rapids, Michael Starr in San Jose, and then also Remy Gard in Montreal. So a question mark on the Portland Timbers. Between Friedel, Hudson, Starr, and Gard, who's the guy that stands out to you guys? Who's the team that you're thinking, hey, a change was made, and I like that change?
It has to be Friedel, right? I mean, you look at New England, and they have a lot of talented guys, but you bring in a guy like Friedel who, he's got his coaching badges, and he's probably one of the most experienced soccer players in the history of the game. He played, till he was very old, and not very old. Excuse me. Sorry, Brad. Not very old. But I mean, as a goalkeeper, he played at the highest level for a really long time. So I'll be curious to see how he transitions from his role as a broadcaster, commentator, and going into his first head coaching job with a team in New England that has a lot of talent, and a lot of big names. I'll be curious to see how New England does.
I'm just curious to see how the new foreign coaches will be. I mean, you mentioned 2, maybe even 3. I think it's intriguing that the league is going more foreign, I guess, in the last couple of years with the head coaching hirings. And so I'm going to be looking just from afar if they can, grasp the intricacies of this league, and it'll be exciting, I think.
I think Tata did okay. We'll see if Rimigard can do that in Montreal. Has so much experience with Lyon in Europe. Let's talk about an American coach who is back, Bob Bradley, LAFC. A huge season to come for them as LA welcomes in their second team. What a rivalry that will be. But Bob has such a long history in U.S. soccer, now in international soccer with Egypt, and then his coaching stints in Europe. What are our expectations for LAFC? We see that stadium getting built, Diego. We see Carlos Vela coming in. We see Bob starting to tap his scouting networks. What do you expect?
We are expecting to face a great team. Great team. They sign a great coach with a lot of experience, and obviously they are, I mean, they are spending a lot of, they are investing a lot in players, and in West Conference it will be more competitive, and I'm excited to see that. And there's 2 teams in LA, and the crowd, the stadium, so it will be exciting.
How are they going to play?
I expect LAFC to make the playoffs, their first season, for sure. And I say that because I think they have good people behind the scenes, bringing in the right players, but I say that because I played for Bob, and I know how competitive he is, and I know how good of a coach he can be. So I look at them, and I see them making the playoffs like Atlanta United this year, but I see totally different teams, right? I see, Bob being a little bit more pragmatic. He loves to attack, but I think they're going to be a little bit more organized, being an expansion team. I think we saw early from Minnesota that they weren't very good defensively, and I think that put them behind the 8 ball quickly. I think with Bob, you always know you're going to get organization, you're going to get defensive presence, and you have some fun attacking players to work with. So I expect big things out of LAFC.
On the other side of LA, it was a tough season for the Galaxy. That's not what we expect from them. You used to share a locker room, Tim. What did you make of what happened this year? It's a down year. Can they bounce back? Is this a long-term rebuilding process?
I don't know if it's going to be next season, but it is the Galaxy. They are the marquee club within MLS, and they will rebound. I think they kind of just needed to reshuffle some of the positions with players, and now that they got Ziggy in there, I think he's going to obviously put together a good team like he has in years past. But it is LA, all the glitz and glam that come with LA. They will rebound and put the money where they have to and make the team good again.
We talked about New England and RSL, 2 teams that we expect to take a big jump forward, maybe get back to the playoffs this year. Who else, Ike, is a team that you look at that didn't make it this year that you think could get there? I mean, I'm thinking like the Montreals, Dallas, Orlando, Minnesota, DC, Philly. You've got some choices.
Well, I look at kind of what happened to Dallas, and the beginning part of this year, when they were advancing in CONCACAF Champions League, I remember thinking, wow, this team's going to be dynamite again. They're going to be tough to beat. They won multiple trophies last year. They're going to be tough. And whatever happened, I don't know. I mean, we can speculate and whatnot, but whatever happened, and they fell and they missed the playoffs. I just don't see that happening again without a major reconstruction. And I think they have enough of that core and good players that remain to build off of that. So, and Oscar, I think, is a really good coach in this league, and so I think that they're going to rebound and make the playoffs. But again, in this league, kind of anything can happen. And Dallas was one of the teams, I guess, that fell victim of it. And I don't know, surprising, but I expect them to rebound, I guess.
Yeah. I look at a team like Orlando City, right? I mean, they come into the league, they have all this kind of like NYCFC, right? They have a lot of publicity behind them, fantastic fan support, an ownership group that invests a lot of money in that team, and they haven't made the playoffs now for 3 years in a row. Mm-hmm. And I think expectations there, especially with a coach like Jason Kreis, who's had success in this league, I think expectations there are very high right now. And they obviously, I look at it as kind of a rebuilding year, but at the same time, with 3 years not making the playoffs, how much more can you really rebuild? And how much more can you say, hey, I need more time, I need more time? So I look at a team like Orlando, and I would love to see them do well, because obviously, my hometown, from there. Would love to see them, be successful and get those fans a playoff game.
Somebody's got to win the Landon Donovan MVP. Maybe this guy again. We'll see. I want to get your early predictions. You can go out on a limb if you want to, or you can go with the same old candidates here.
I'm not going out on a limb. It's easy for me. Joseph Martinez. I mean, the guy has a ridiculous goal scoring rate. I don't know how. I think he averaged more than a goal a game at one point this year. And for him, I think the big question mark is, can he stay healthy the whole season? Obviously, he'll be doing some traveling with the national team. Going back and forth, but. When he was healthy, I mean, he made Atlanta a different team.
Yeah, absolutely. Any other names
contender.
out there? Diego, you got one? You're the reigning champion.
I don't mean it's a hard question, but I was thinking in Almiron or Joseph Martinez. Almiron, because he can create too. And he can, if he scores the amount of chances that he create, probably is another level. But or Joseph of Almiron, in the way they play, probably the MVP could be there.
I'm taking Atlanta off the table, guys. We know they got great players.
For the sake of Sporting Kansas City, hope he doesn't win it again next year.
Yeah.
So someone in the East.
Someone in the East.
That's all I'm worried about.
Who might it be?
Or someone on our team, or someone in the East. How about that?
Villa again. I think Villa. I think he's kind of lit a fire under him this year. I think now he feels like he's got a little bit more to prove. He continues to get better with age. He's so important to that team, and he's such a competitor.
All right, we're going to wrap up here, guys. Huge thanks for joining me here on the MLS Round Table presented by Target, and a massive thanks to Target for letting me talk soccer with these guys. Go check out part 1 of our 2017 MLS Season in Review. We break down the biggest stories around the league. In part 2, we shower praise on the best players, including some of these guys. And of course, here in part 3, we looked ahead to 2018. Leave your comments in the comments section below, and stay tuned to MLSsoccer.com for all the news during the 2017 offseason.